We live in an age of connection. 100 years ago, we predicted we were supposed to have flying cars by now. Instead, we got global instant communication. We can text, call, share, post, react, video call, or record our entire lives in real time. We have access to what has remained unthinkable for the whole duration of human history. The possibility to express our thoughts by broadcasting them to the world. Yet underneath all of this noise, beneath all of this unprecedented series of opportunities for creativity, expressivity, and connectivity, a silent paradoxical epidemic grows: loneliness. We call it a social isolation, mental health decline, lack of community, crisis of meanings, or crisis in consciousness. We blame, of course, the usual suspects, such as technologies, smartphones, social media, algorithms, capitalism, attention economy, and so on. And with no doubt, they certainly give their contribution, their malevolent contribution. But very, very, very few minds stop, pause and reflect to ask a more uncomfortable question. What if the deeper cause behind this modern paradox, this modern epidemics of loneliness, lies within us? What if the primary source of loneliness lies within our unwillingness to inquire into how we put together our reasoning styles daily? We have become neurotically entangled in our own thinking processes. Each of us lives inside a personalized liminal labyrinth of assumptions, reoccurring memories, inner echo chambers, all intertwined with trauma responses, even fixations, and mini or medium-sized delusions, and other never-examined psychological residues we usually call ourselves. These are not merely habits of thought. They are the structures and the architectures of our inner mental reality. They are what constitutes our cognition and the content of our consciousness. And as long as this structure remains unexamined, it quietly governs how we perceive and relate, and therefore how we interpret, how we feel, how we reason, and therefore how we behave. When you meet another human being, it is not simply you meeting them. It is your accumulated mental conditioning meeting theirs. It is the mental representation you have of yourself meeting theirs. Your assumptions, your wants, your desires, your defensive patterns, your coping mechanisms, and your self-centered activities, your biases, your strong views, and all the rest of that encountering theirs. And the meeting, of course, becomes a negotiation between two systems of psychological history, not exactly between two human beings with fresh, healthy minds. How can the result of this be a genuine contact? A dialogic interaction where significant emotional reactions do not really take over the communication and the conversations. Please think about this deeply. This is not a philosophy. This is our life's dynamics factually. In fact, these interpersonal dynamics are too often about friction disguised as conversation. Unless, as many do, we stay militantly in the territory of shallow verbal chit-chatting that is too often perceived as a type of illusory secure mental shelter where to position ourselves, but that in return feeds even more the sense of loneliness. This issue, in my view, is really the core reason why loneliness persists, even in the most connected societies ever. It is not only that we are cut off from others, we are cut off from ourselves introspectively. That void of sense and sense of void, many of us sense, is about this. And this is also the source of our loneliness in the first place. We scroll endlessly through curated lives, hoping to find and feel something real. But we usually get caught up in shallow, commercial, second-hand trends, whether spiritual ones or fitness, reinventing yourself based mantras, inspirational and motivational empty junk, and illusory lifestyles and myths, and of course oceans of painfully superficial contents, while being estranged from the one thing that could restore significance, which is direct, in-depth, serious, intelligent, and reflective self-understanding. Not the self as a egoic narrative, and not the self of I am this or I want to become that, but the self as a field of perception that can observe its own conditioning. So why not begin there, with a self-inquiry into the structure, the ramifications and the dynamics of our own self? Can the self be aware of itself? Can thoughts be aware of themselves? Can this awareness happen via critical reflectiveness and serious metacognitive introspection? Not as another self-help ritual, or as another project of becoming better, or some old or new faith or belief, but as a radical, deductive, critical thinking-oriented, metacognitive act of clarity. To look within seriously means to suspend the consolations of belief, the narcotics of fantasy, and the comfort of ideals. It means to examine thought as thought, not as truth, not as some trait intertwined with the personal sense of identity, but as a conditioned psychological movement that, by the way, happens physically as a material phenomenon in the brain. It means to ask, what am I actually doing, cognitively speaking, mentally and emotionally, when I think, react, remember salient things, when I desire or judge? Loneliness in this light is not just emotional emptiness. It clearly becomes the byproduct of a fragmented mind trying to connect, but through its own unexamined fragmentation. When there is metacognitive self-knowledge being built, even during a simple moment of clear observation, the division begins to dissolve. You don't fix loneliness. You understand the psychological patterns that sustain it. You then try to function accordingly. And perhaps that meta-understanding, surely tough and harsh in most cases, but immensely beneficial for our mental maturity, is the first real connection we have had in a long time. Not with others, but with our own authentic mental life, with its virtues and biases, ups and downs, truths and falsities. Before seeking connection, let's observe critically the one who seeks. Is it a decently aware you, or rather the sum of your unexamined thoughts about you?